Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the POLICON here on Smart 24 Television. I am Jerome Paul Sonko to take you through these various conversations and discussions yet again. And of course, for all of you who are tuning in, many thanks for joining us for this particular episode that is basically going to be rotating around discussions to do with the political and economic sphere that is facilitating the economy of Uganda at large. And of course, for those who are just joining us, for the very first time, you can get us on mainstream channel 320, that is GOTV, then DSTV's channel 372. And what a way to definitely keep driving your business. At the start of every financial year, there are lots of questions that rotate around how various sectors within the economy can fit in different kind of situations. And as a matter of fact, when you look at the small and medium-sized enterprises as a sector in Uganda, it is one of those most pivotal parts of Uganda's economy. If to take you through, when you look at some of the small and medium enterprise players, for example, these ones are both formal and informal, if you come to think of it, especially those in the medium part of the country in regards to business and making sure that we understand the SMEs in general. But of course, as we continue to discuss more of the SME sector, in today's show, we are looking at the contribution of the SMEs in Uganda's economy today. And our discussion is definitely going to be rotating around there. One, facilitation, looking at the challenges, looking deeper into understanding how is the atmosphere and the environment for those in the SME sector to perform to their best in order to lift Uganda's economy. Of course, it can't be a discussion or a conversation with only one person in it. And joining me to discuss this and more, we are joined by the Executive Director of IMPAACT, that is none other than Mr. Soteri Nabeta. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Sonko, and it's a pleasure to be part of you. Okay. And greetings to our viewers.
Speaking of IMPAACT, let's briefly let the viewers feel what does IMPAACT do and what does it represent?
IMPAACT is a public tertiary institution with the mandate of promoting enterprise development, and we do this through training and advisory services. Okay. We are an old institution, older than Uganda as a I think Uganda as a country is slightly older than us by just 2 years. Mm-hmm. And you can call it one of the household institutions, to the extent that the kind of programs we do as an institution target the households right away from the grassroots.
Okay. Yes. Okay, speaking of targeting the grassroots, now we're looking at the contribution of the SME sector to the development of the country. For the viewers, in your own opinion, who are the SMEs that we have and what represents this particular sector?
For starters, I think what we normally call the SMEs are actually the MSMEs. Okay. Micro, small and medium enterprises. Majority of our enterprises are actually micro. Call them the smallest units, okay. Employing 1, 2, 3 people. And these are the majority of the enterprises that we have in this particular country. And not to say the least, the biggest employers of our people. Largely, most of our people are into self-employment. And they range in different fields. Agriculture, okay. I'm glad that now the ICT sector, the service industry, is picking up. Quite a number of our youth are innovating some of the business solutions and offering business solutions to enterprises and the like. So most of them are micro. Okay.
And when you look at the state of Uganda's economy today, their contribution is really vital. And one may wonder, how are we getting these micro people into the formal sector? Because I want to believe the micro are entirely informal. Why? Because of the fact that it's a one-man's business, 2 people's business. So it's ideally, if I open up my shop today, I make money. If I close tomorrow, I'm not making money. So how do we turn these people into the formal sector?
You're right that majority of these businesses, call them enterprises, are still in the informal sector. And that's why the tax burden is still high. that the enterprises that are actually contributing direct taxes to the tax economy of this country,
yes,
majority are the medium and the large and the like. So these micro ones, it's not true that they don't pay tax. They actually do, but largely indirect taxes. But they also need to participate in the payment of the direct taxes. And how do we do this? That is, I think, the major question you're asking. One of the ways is to ensure that all businesses actually get registered. And is it true that local governments issue trading licenses? Yes. But there are also some areas where the local governments are sleeping in courts. People open shops, and the local governments in these particular areas, it is to whom it may concern. You find someone operating a shop for years and years, and when you ask them about a trading license, especially in these up-country districts, people don't know. So I think they need to have some cross-working relationship between Uganda Registration Services Bureau and the local governments, such that you don't just operate a shop anywhere. I'm just giving that as an example.
Yes.
If you are not registered, I don't come to collect trading license fees from you if you are not registered with Uganda Registration Services Bureau. Now, once that is achieved, then it becomes easy to even establish the actual number of enterprises that are operating in the country. So if we can have that working local government to establish the applicable mechanisms to ensure that people who are doing businesses, whether in the villages, because it's the same country, they are known and their contribution is recorded,
yes,
and efforts are made to ensure that whatever they are doing is within the presence of the law.
Well, I'll come to acknowledge the fact that you with this particular view, you've given it from the administrative point of direction. Let's have it from you, who is actually into the education sector as well, I should say, part of the education sector. How are we going to get these particular players themselves now into this particular formal? How do we formalize? How do we encourage them to formalize their business?
Correct. Indeed, the normalization of doing business,
yes,
is all our responsibility, not only the local governments, but the training institutions, especially for us, the education institutions. Our role should largely be sensitization. When you are training people, we need to embed in these elements of encouraging people to formalize their businesses. Because one of the best ways of actually expanding the business is formalizing. If the business is not formalized, there are certain business opportunities that you cannot go for. So I think as educational institutions, these are things that need to be emphasized throughout. Most of these entrepreneurs come through us. We teach entrepreneurship.
Yes.
So those are some of the basics that we, as IMPAACT, we emphasize, and we believe other training institutions must keep emphasizing.
Okay. And of course, as we continue to have this discussion to our dear viewers, I want to believe that most of you belong to the MSME sector, mainly the micro and small enterprises. Because when we talk medium, this is where the entire formal sector of Uganda starts shaping up. And then medium-sized enterprises, that is when you get into the macro part of it. But when you look at this ED, in regards to their contribution to the sector, let's just break down a little bit. How do the micro contribute to Uganda's economy, and then the small, and then the medium, in your own view of things?
You'll find that they actually contribute the same, but it is the magnitude now.
Okay.
Employment opportunities. All these enterprises provide employment opportunities to people.
Okay.
You know, so you are doing it at micro level, you are doing it at a smaller level, you are doing it at medium level and the like. Then market for inputs. You know, depending on the kind of enterprise that you're doing, you provide market for the raw materials that are provided elsewhere. This is a business that is being done by some other people. And then when it comes to widening the tax base, you know, government cannot operate. Largely, governments operate based on the taxes they collect
the taxpayers,
from
yes.
You know. So the more the micro enterprises, the more the medium enterprises, the more likely the tax base of the economy. So their contributions, I can sum it up by saying that the life of a country, the life of a country is dependent on the life of its businesses, micro business, small and medium enterprises.
Okay.
That is what defines the life of a country.
Okay, let's talk about business expansion. In Uganda here, I think, I don't want to use the word comfortable, but we tend to feel okay with the fact that I can start my simple business and I stop at that. Most of them don't want to expand or grow branches or have different businesses operating under their names away from Uganda. Where do you think the issue is? Is it because lack of a capital base, or is it because we're just comfortable with this simple environment?
Which is rather unfortunate.
Okay.
And you agree with me, whereas we have been ranked among the best enterprising countries in the world by the Global Entrepreneurship Monitoring Reports, we unfortunately also rank among the worst in terms of business sustainability, that the collapse rate is high. Now, that explains part of the mindset, that the challenge that we have. The comfortability sometimes is informed by the lack of exposure. The lack of exposure limits the competition. You think where you have reached is enough. Yet there are people who started like you and have really expanded, and they are now global brands.
Yes.
So it somehow limits, and it's a problem that can only be managed through sensitization, through networking, and continuously telling people the growth opportunities that are available. Then too, we still have a challenge with understanding and trying out the partnership kind of mentality in this country, not only in this country by the general, but Africa as a whole. The ability for enterprises to partner with the ones that are established or the ones that can directly enable them to grow in one or the other is still limited. People still want to keep in their cocoon. Look what, I can give an example of the universities in Uganda. There are some universities, Cavendish as an example, is not a Ugandan university. It is a UK university. It started in UK, but it has grown branches world over, and it is offering business solutions. How many Ugandan universities have gone beyond the
borders here?
The borders, apart from Kampala International University, which has equally kept within
the region.
The region only. Why not expand to those other areas? So the bit of exploring partnerships with established enterprises, is still a bit of a challenge in this particular economy. And I think it is one of the ways that can help to even widen the entrepreneurial opportunities for our entrepreneurs. Okay,
and for quite some while, we've got to realize that the political and social aspects in normal circumstances play a pivotal role in the growth of the economy. When you look at our political space, how was it impacted or affected in the other way in regards to the growth of the SME sector?
Once the politics of any society is bad, it certainly affects everything that goes in there. There will always be some exceptions to the rule. Some people actually do business in a state of chaos. That is notwithstanding. But if you are looking at a bigger picture, the investors, the entrepreneurs, all kinds of business people want to do business in a safe political environment. So once the political environment of an area is not stable, then the economic performance certainly gets affected. Let's look at our situation in Uganda in the period 1970s. You could see how we were struggling, 70s and the early part of 80s because of the lack of peace. Let's look at the situation in northern Uganda until the LRA insurgents were completely wiped out. The economic performance in that particular area was a little bit limited. So you always want, look at these threats that have started, they keep coming in, the terrorist threats. Somehow they affect people in the tourism industries, to a big extent, by the way. Now, there are always interlinkages. If the tourist doesn't come, this taxi man who is doing transport business is likely to miss out on the kind of business that he was likely to offer because tourist air has not come. Okay, tourism is not only about the external tourists. Even locally, you have got the local tourism, which is always encouraged. But even the local tourism gets affected if in an area there is assumed insecurity. So the politics of an area play a significant role, establishing an environment that would allow the entrepreneurs to flourish in a legal manner.
Let's look at policy structuring here in the country. We have our policy makers who we should definitely term as the legislators, parliament per se.
Yes.
Most of these policies that are set out at times are mainly directly heading to, that is the medium and of course the macro enterprises, because at least you get to realize these are more formal. How then are we going to structure policies that are more, that are at least cross-cutting to the small enterprises? Because unlike the taxes, some of the policies don't look so eye-catching to the sector of the small or the micro enterprises or the people within that sector. Let's look at our policy structuring. Do you think we still need to look at the policies we set out?
Oh yes, policy review is supposed to be a continuous activity. Policy review and development, because things change.
Yes.
And we need to appreciate the fact that policies are not only passed at parliament level.
Okay.
Yes. There are some that are a preserve of parliament. There is some that are a preserve of the executive. There are some that are a preserve of the local governments, but also at different institutional levels. And let me give an example of electricity. Electricity is not consumed by the formal businesses alone. You get it?
Okay.
It is consumed by even the informal businesses. So even the informal businesses, in one way or the other, they pay taxes because they are going to pay for these utilities.
Exactly.
They will pay for water. They will pay for power.
The budget is for all.
Yes, it is for all. But the beauty, the good thing is that we need to keep sensitizing these informal businesses. It's much, much better to actually be formal.
Okay.
Yes. They miss out on a lot of opportunities once they are not formalized. And I still think that's why, although you looked at it from the perspective of administration, but I think it is important even for the government planning to know the number of businesses, the number of enterprises that are actually in the country, and that can be enhanced if there is that close relationship between USB and the local governments.
In some parts of your introduction, you mentioned something to do with the fact that Uganda, being an entrepreneurial country, being recognized highly, we still have a challenge of maintaining the longevity of these business empires or the small businesses that we have. Where do you think is the challenge coming from, whereby most of the businesses, if someone starts up a business today per se, most of them do not live towards their second, to even celebrate their first year anniversary in regards to how far they've come. Most of them collapse within the way. What is the major challenge there?
The major challenge is that most of our people do what we call copy and cast. Is it copy and paste? Yeah.
Yes.
Copy and paste businesses. Mr. Sonko has opened a shop and succeeded within a short time. Let me also open a shop
and do the same business.
And do the same. And yet business management really doesn't go like that. You'll find that Sonko has unique attributes which you yourself do not know, you do not have. So it's always important that people appreciate their competencies, appreciate their strength, appreciate their businesses, appreciate their passion. I'll give myself as an example.
Yes.
I opened a school in 2010.
Okay.
It operated for 1 year.
Okay. Primary, secondary?
It was a secondary school. It was closed for various reasons. But I did not lose my passion for education as a business and also as a service.
Okay.
I think about 6 years later, I organized myself and opened, this time a primary, and it is doing well. So sometimes now someone will come and see my school after 10 years of operation at a certain level and will want to be like me.
In 1 year?
In 1 year. Maybe even 1 day or 1 month. You're not going to succeed however much money you have. you know, because you do not know what individual A, B has gone through. So sometimes it's also good to benchmark, find out, share experiences with these people who have established themselves, and they'll tell you what they have gone through. Sometimes I'm now pondering on opening a bakery, but I don't want just open it for the sake. I'm visiting quite a number of bakery operators to see the nitty-gritties that happens there, and I find if it's something that I can actually do and do sustainably. Okay. So the copy and paste mentality somehow contributes to the high collapse rates of our businesses. And then two, the issue of patience. Okay. You are not going to have, most of the enterprises that I know world over succeed over time. But most of our people do not have that patience to really say in line.
Eddie, when we do return after the break, I want us to build on to some of those points in regards to the challenges generally that the SMEs are facing. And then also, we shall as well look at what you think other institutions should do, just like IMPAACT is doing, for example, and what should be done to at least create awareness for the public, especially those in business and those in trade, to understand how the dynamics of the world moves. Because lately, the way we are moving, the world is moving so fast, so you need to adapt to quite a number of those. And so to all our viewers out there, we go into a short commercial break. When we return, we have conversations building up to the challenges or the general shortcomings within the SME sector, and also looking deeply into understanding how the education world can shape Uganda's economy, and also recommendations from the ED himself in regards to how we can prepare students right from the grassroots to get into the job market. You're watching the POLICON. This is Smart 24.